All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. We begin today with what has been a heated debate over dropping Indiana's requirement for a permit to carry a handgun. We've followed that debate for weeks. Indiana lawmakers passed the bill over strong objections from some, but not all, law enforcement in the state. State Police Superintendent Doug Carter was one of the loudest voices. Now add in Indianapolis police who were against the bill through an editorial from the department's second in command, Chris Bailey. He argues, quote, "This dangerous public policy will embolden those who are legally prohibited from possessing a gun to freely carry them on our streets." He's also pushing the governor to veto it, saying we owe it to our cops and, more importantly, our neighbors to be reasonable in the exercise of the Second Amendment. Assistant Chief Bailey, good to see you. Thank you for taking some time. Why'd you feel the need to write this op-ed?
Well, I think it's important that those of us who have leadership positions within the city make our opinions known to those that make public policy, and I think that this one has been really important to us and to IMPD. As we fight gun violence and murders and non-fatal shootings and shots fired in our city, that this is an important tool that our officers have, and we expect there to be some consequences of having this tool taken from us.
If the governor goes ahead and signs this thing, do you think crime is going to go up?
Well, I don't necessarily think crime's going to go up. I think that the job of the officers and detectives that we task with going after those people that illegally possess weapons, that use those against our neighbors, those investigations are going to become more complicated for our officers. And 1,300 cases pending over at the Marion County Prosecutor's Office now from those that have illegally possessed a weapon. Each one of those weapons is a weapon that now we don't have possession of, that we can't test using the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. That tool allows us to connect guns to multiple gun crimes across not only here in central Indiana, but across the country. And so not having the ability to utilize that tool to solve murders and non-fatal shootings is a step backwards for our investigators.
I'm sure you've heard from both sides. What do you say to supporters of this bill, specifically groups like, and I want to quote them, the United States Concealed Carry Association? I'm sure you're well aware where they stand. They point to other states that have similar legislation and say they haven't seen a rise in crime because of it.
Well, like I said, I don't know that we're necessarily going to see a rise in crime, but solving crimes is just as important to those that have been victimized by gun crimes. And, I appreciate all these external groups. They have their opinions just like I have mine. I'm not going to fault anybody for their particular opinion. They have their interests and we have our interests. And so, I'm speaking on behalf of law enforcement interests, especially here in Marion County. Look, the legislature created the Indiana Crime Guns Task Force last year through a bipartisan bill passed in both houses and signed by the governor that tasks central Indiana law enforcement agencies to combat gun violence. And we're doing that. In fact, they're just getting started. They've taken hundreds of guns off the street. Each one of those guns represents a life saved, in my opinion, from gun violence. And, we don't want their important work to be set back by taking this tool away from them.
Explain to the folks at home who are watching this who maybe aren't aware, how does it make your job more difficult?
When we encounter those folks, I agree with what people say that lawful people are going to continue to follow the law. That's been our, experience as well. But when we have, right now that law puts checks on people who cannot possess a weapon. And I think taking that ability away will allow people to more freely walk around with weapons when they know they're not supposed to have them. And knowing that law enforcement has the less ability to, hold them accountable for that weapon. And we see time and time again lawful gun owners, like we saw at the indictment and conviction and sentencing earlier this week of the person that's providing weapons to people that shouldn't have them, both here in Indianapolis and in Chicago. Here's a lawful owner buying weapons legally, possessing them legally, but providing them to those that aren't supposed to have them. So those are the folks that we're worried about, is those that are legally prohibited from possessing weapons, not legal citizens, not those that want to defend themselves and their houses. And I don't think this particular bill solves any particular problem. I think it causes more problems for law enforcement in the long run.
Are you surprised that the governor is considering this?
No, I mean, that's his job, right? I think in my op-ed piece, at the very beginning, I said I want to thank those that are in these positions. They have to make tough decisions. And they have to make, as public servants, they're probably pulled in multiple different directions. And so I appreciate all of them that are willing to stand up and do that. Look, the governor and many of those that voted in favor of this bill are supporters of law enforcement. I don't think that diminishes that support for law enforcement. And so I appreciate the work they do. But I also want them to hear our opinion from law enforcement that we think this is going to hinder our efforts to reduce violent crime in central Indiana.
Just a couple more questions before I let you go, and I appreciate you taking some time as always. Have you gotten any pushback after writing this op-ed?
No, I'm sure there will be. There's always going to be people that will take swipes and personal attacks and what have you. I mean, I think that it would be wrong for us not to step forward in leadership positions and make our opinion known. That's what makes this country so great, is that we can have differing opinions and be friends at the end of the day. I respect every single member of the General Assembly and the governor, and they do great work for our city. I just happen to disagree on this particular bill. At the end of the day, I think law enforcement will find a way. We'll adapt and overcome like we always do and always have. And I still consider those people over there I know as friends. They'll be friends tomorrow as they are today. I just happen to disagree on this bill, and that's okay.
Have you had any discussions with the prosecutor's office before writing this or coming to this conclusion?
Well, not necessarily before writing to this, but yeah, we have conversations on a consistent basis with the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, as they are also tasked with trying to reduce violent crime in Marion County and Indianapolis. I think that's what our number one priority is in their agency. I know it's our priority here in this agency, and we're going to continue to do that work. We'll see what happens with this bill, and then we will adjust as appropriate to continue to keep the people of Indianapolis and Marion County, both those that live here, those that come here to play, and those that visit, safe as best we can.
Assistant Chief Chris Bailey, thank you so much for taking some time. We'll talk soon.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Coming up, the president of Ukraine pleads for more help from the United States. A reaction from Indiana's members of Congress next on All Indiana Politics. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we turn to the war in Ukraine. Wednesday, we watched as Ukraine's president made direct appeal to members of Congress and President Biden for more military help to fight the Russian invasion. President Biden then authorized another $800 million in U.S. assistance, but stopped short of endorsing a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Right after the speech, our Garrett Berquist talked to members of Indiana's congressional delegation.
Commend him for his very courageous leadership at this time of crisis, not only for Ukraine, but for the entire world. His speech underscored the important role America must play in supporting Ukraine. As the world's leading democracy, the U.S., we have responsibility to stand up to Russia's aggression and aid the Ukrainian people.
The Biden administration, as President Zelensky indicated, has not been strong enough in providing the air power that the Ukrainians need to be able to fight back and resist Russian aggression. We've effectively provided lethal aid to the Ukrainian freedom fighters, Stinger anti-aircraft missiles, Javelin anti-tank weapons, but they don't have the aircraft that they need to control the airspace. And if they're going to be able to engage in the next phase of this fight, which is actually pushing back so that they can win in the end, as opposed to lose slowly, they're going to need aircraft.
The American people have and are still standing with President Zelensky. And it's a powerful message. When he brought up Pearl Harbor Day to this country, what we withstood. And then 9/11, I think it jogged everybody's memories to the fact that, bad things do happen and every country has experienced that. And he's calling out, the United States to basically stop that war in the air by getting those MiGs delivered.
If NATO, which is largely headed by the United States, us, if NATO did that, it would risk a direct conflict with Russia and our country, for that matter, which could trigger, World War III. I don't want American troops drawn into this war. America can and should use other measures to put extreme pressure on Russia. But, we have to continue imposing sanctions on Russia, providing aid to Ukraine, and working with our allies to punish Putin's government.
Is there a risk that if we do push forward with trying to get those MiG-29s transferred to the Ukrainians, that this could escalate the conflict further and possibly risk World War III?
No, that's exactly what Vladimir Putin wants us to fear. He wants us to fear that by providing additional defense articles to the Ukrainian people, we could be drawn into the conflict further. There is no difference and no distinction to be made between defensive articles that are shot from the ground, like Stinger anti-aircraft weapons or anti-tank weapons, and aircraft. They're both used for defensive purposes. They're both used to defend a sovereign nation. And there is no aggression so long as that weaponry is provided to the Ukrainians and not operated by Americans or our NATO allies.
I think something has to be done. I think negligence on our part would be a tremendous failure and a letdown. I think we have to demonstrate leadership as we are doing. But we also need the support from our global allies in this process.
At this point, what more can we do?
Well, I think the thing we can do, and I think there's bipartisan cooperation and complete agreement, bicameral as well, in getting those MiGs into that air, from our NATO allies. And obviously, no American troops on the grounds, none of that, but just assisting them in what they want, which is, they are fighting now. They're holding off Putin and his, large scale army. They're requesting the one thing that'll bring an end to this is air power. And I think there's bipartisan agreement to get them that air power to stop the humanitarian genocide that's happening over there. Putin's already a war criminal. He's a ruthless dictator. I would have thought with Biden being the leader of the free world, there would have been a red line before this. And so I don't know in his mind what it's going to take to move this president and this administration, but I think enough's enough.
All right, coming up, Indiana's best political team standing by to talk U.S. response in Ukraine next on All Indiana Politics. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome back Democrat Brian Gadding, Republican Mario Masalamani. Gentlemen, good to see you. Let's start with that bill that would drop Indiana's requirement for a permit to carry a handgun. Brian, we'll go to you first. If the governor signs this bill, are Hoosiers less safe, in your opinion?
Absolutely, Hoosiers are less safe. There's no need for this bill. Hoosiers have a Second Amendment right. We Democrats support Hoosiers' right to defend themselves and carry handguns or firearms under the Second Amendment. But what is wrong with having a gun permit? I don't understand this right-wing attitude where gun permits are seen now, I guess, a form of gun control. So all those years when we had gun permits, does that mean we weren't operating under the Second Amendment? It's just ridiculous. It really is.
Mario?
Phil, I think that this is a great bill. I hope the governor signs it. Legal, law-abiding citizens have to go through lots of hoops to jump through to get this permit. In some counties, it's taking 3 to 4 months to be able to get a permit, so that way they can purchase a gun. As a former prosecutor, as a defense attorney now, I can tell Brian, I can tell you our listeners that criminals are not waiting to get a gun permit to go rob somebody or to commit a crime. they go do that. So the only people this is impacting by having to get a permit is law-abiding citizens that are trying to arm themselves and make sure that they can defend themselves.
What about the attack, though, Mario, that says by signing this, you're against law enforcement?
Completely disagree. Dennis Quakenbush, who is the sheriff of Hamlin County, has testified on behalf of this bill. He has talked about how this bill is going to help Hoosiers be able to protect and be able to carry their guns. I don't believe that this is against law enforcement by any means. All this is doing is allowing individuals, Hoosiers, an opportunity to get a gun without having to go through restrictions and having to wait a long period of time to be able to get a gun permit.
Brian, I'll let you respond.
Well, IMPD and most law enforcement officers are against this bill, so that should tell you something. We're hearing law enforcement officers saying that it's going to be harder to track criminals because they don't know if they have these guns, where did they get them, if they had a permit, or if they didn't have a permit. It's going to tie the hands of law enforcement. And the majority of law enforcement officers, not just here in Indiana, but in other states that are passing similar bills like this, are against it. So I'm gonna take my cue from law enforcement. If the Republicans want to be against law enforcement officers, that's their problem, and they'll pay for it politically.
Phil?
All right. Yeah, go ahead, Mario. Go ahead.
Phil, really quickly, if you look at the states with the most amount of crime, Illinois, in New York, you look at Washington, D.C., they have some of the most restrictive laws regarding owning a gun. And guess what? They are also the cities and the states with the highest crime.
Hold on, Brian, hold on. I'll let you go. Mario, make your point. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, you look at the states and the cities with the most restrictive gun laws, and those are the states with the largest increases in gun violence. So I don't believe that this is a law that's going to increase violence or crime by any means, nor is it a law that is against law enforcement.
Brian, that is what the data shows.
Well, Mario's being totally disingenuous. He knows exactly that states, whether it's Chicago, obviously we here in Indiana have very loose gun laws. Washington, D.C., they're near Virginia. These are states that are near cities or states that are near other states that have very loose gun laws. He knows that, so he's trying to mislead your listeners.
So are you saying, hold on, are you saying that the crime that's being committed in, say, Chicago is because of the gun laws that are here in Indiana?
What I'm saying, Phil, and you know this, I mean, it's not something you don't know yourself. What I'm saying is that if you look at cities like Chicago, they are inundated with guns that are coming from Indiana. We all know this. You know it. Mario knows this. This is just a fact. FBI
I don't know that, Phil. I don't know that at all.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I mean, I'm sure there is some of that, and I have seen some data on that, but I don't think it's as extensive as you're making it seem. But we'll move on to Ukraine now. Mario, let's move on to. Go ahead. One more. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's definitely known that a lot of the guns that you find on the streets of Chicago or the streets of Washington, D.C. are from Indiana, our state. And again, I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, as well as Virginia. I mean, that's just a known fact.
I don't think that...
Quickly, I got 90 seconds left. We can go on all about this all day long, but I got 90 seconds left. Mario, is the president doing enough when it comes to Ukraine?
Well, what he did in the past has led us to where we are today. By shutting down the Keystone Pipeline, by lifting the sanctions on Nord Stream 2, he has basically green-lighted Putin in doing this because Putin knows that we are energy independent on Russia. If we had allowed for Keystone Pipeline to be created, and also if he hadn't lifted the sanctions that were currently in place under Nord Stream 2, Europe would not have been so reliant upon Russian oil also. I don't feel that he has been, and I think that there's so much more that he could be doing.
Brian, 1 minute. Close us out.
There's no doubt about it, the incompetence of former President Donald Trump, and that's why he was impeached the first time, because he was trying to shake down the President Zelensky to find dirt on President Biden and Hunter Biden. Basically like an extortion attempt like you would find, I guess, with Tony Soprano. There's no doubt about it. What he did was extremely unethical. That's why he was impeached. He did not provide...
I don't know what that has to do with Ukraine. Brian just likes to bring up Donald Trump, but I don't know how that has anything to do with Biden and Ukraine.
Yeah, Brian, the question was, is the president doing enough when it comes to Ukraine?
The president is definitely doing enough, but the point I'm trying to make is that we're in the situation we're in because of the incompetence of Donald Trump, which led us to this point where we're in. But no doubt about
Russia
it.
never invaded Ukraine during Donald Trump's
President Biden's done a great job. He's put together an international coalition. He's put soldiers into Poland, into NATO. Russia knows not to move 1 inch westward, or they'll feel the wrath of the U.S. military and NATO. So President Biden's doing a great job. Okay. I think Mario knows that. If he doesn't, he needs.
Gentlemen, good to see you. We're out of time. We'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll be right back.
Thank you, Phil.
Take All Indiana Politics on the go with you. Download our podcast now. Part of the All Indiana Podcast Network and allindianapodcastnetwork.com.
Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics on this Sunday. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. And of course, you can always find our brand new All Indiana Politics podcast. It's part of the All Indiana Podcast Network at wishtv.com. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.